So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I'm going to be presenting three of our lodges in our partners in Brazil. Three very well-known lodges, I think, particularly for their abundance of wildlife, and three lodges which are in some absolutely incredible biomes, three of the major biomes of Brazil. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And start in just a moment. Okay, so basically we came together with three of these lodges a few years ago, a couple of years ago, because we wanted to create a suggested itinerary for tour operators, essentially, and a suggested itinerary which would offer clients the ultimate wildlife itinerary in Brazil. As we know, there is some incredible wildlife in Brazil. It is completely abundant, especially in places like the Pantanal. They also have a huge swathe of the Amazon, the largest area of the Amazon than any country. Therefore, they've got a very, very large number of species there. And then they also have lesser known regions in Brazil, which are still incredibly biodiverse, such as the Cerrado region where Cerrado Trigençal is located. And so what this itinerary wanted to do was to bring these kind of three biomes into this one ultimate wildlife itinerary so that the guests could get the most out of seeing as much wildlife as possible while still kind of exploring off the beaten track, if you like. Okay, so here's a map of Brazil. I'm sure you all know it quite well. And just to show you more or less where the different lodges are located. So we have the Pantanal region here on the western side of Brazil, and Kaiman is located in the southern part of the Pantanal. In the Amazon, Cristalino Lodge is located in the southern part of the Amazon. So as you all might already know, Manaus is quite much further north from here. And Cristalino is in that southern part. And then Trigençal is located right in the middle, really, of this area called the Cerrado region. And it's located near Brasilia. So as I mentioned when I first started, this is really an itinerary that showcases not only these three amazing biomes, but also the kind of the positive impact that each of these lodges are having on the environment around them through their conservation projects and their protected areas, their protected reserves, educational kind of programs, things like that. And of course, you've got these really, really beautiful upscale properties that are within these reserves and serves as bases for people to go out from the lodges to explore those regions. The three main species, I suppose you could call them keystone species for these three different biomes, would be in the Cerrado region, the maned wolf, which I'll talk to you a little bit about in a moment. In the Amazon region, it would be the endemic white-whiskered spider monkey, which is this picture here. And of course, in the Pantanal, you have the jaguar. So I'll start with the Cerrado region. This is a region that, as some of you may be Brazil experts, you'll know a little bit about already, but really it's a region with that not many travelers will go to. It's not that well known. But as you saw from that map, it takes up a lot of space within the central part of Brazil, and basically it's quite a flat region. There's a few national parks here, one which is called the Gran Sertão de Veredas, which does actually border the land with Trigençal. But mainly this whole area is savanna style landscape, so quite sparse trees, quite low-lying flora, really low-lying trees, and you have these kind of beautiful lagoons and rivers that run through it. And it is one of the most, if not the most, biodiverse savannas in the world. And so this is something that is relatively untouched in terms of tourism. And so it's kind of a real hidden gem, if you like. However, one of the reasons why it hasn't been kind of protected by tourism is that only 50% of the original area remains. And this is due to the extensive farming that you see in this area. So this is an example of that. On the journey to Trijensau, which you take from Brasilia to the lodge, it takes about 5 hours by road. You do pass some of these farms along the way. So it does give you some context really as to how important it is to protect this area, because you can see firsthand the kind of the large farming that is happening. They do actually offer an alternative route as well that actually goes through the national park if guests have more time, if they are willing to leave very early in the morning from Brasilia. It's just a couple of hours extra in the car, but it does make it a full day. And Trijensau can also charter flights from Brasilia to Trijensau, which just takes about 40 minutes, I think. So yes, here we are. So 5 hours from Brasilia by road, or 50 minutes by plane, including charter flights. So here you have Brasilia and Trijensau. So Trijensau, the name actually means tri-junction, as I'm sure you know if you speak Spanish or Portuguese. And that is because it sits on the border of 3 different states. So it sits on the border of Bahia, so Salvador da Bahia, that kind of the state that goes all the way to the coast, Minas Gerais to the south, and I think you pronounce it Goiás, which is to the east. So that's why it's called Trijensau. Now, I wanted to just quickly mention that Trijensau is owned by this and run by the same people who own Posada Literaria in Paraty and Tutabel, which is in Trancoso. Now, these 3 properties plus Fazenda Bananal near Paraty have now become a new hotel group called Orcanto, which is why this logo is here. And they've got some really exciting plans, and they've got a real focus on regenerative tourism, and there'll be more to hear about that next year, hopefully. Anyway, so back to Trijensau. As I mentioned, it's got extensive farming, and of course this means that there are many endangered species in this area. Another reason why Trijensau wanted to create this private reserve and kind of protect the habitat. So due to the destruction of this habitat, the endangered species you'll find here do include the jaguar, the ocelot, armadillo, anteater, the grey eagle, and of course the keystone species we just mentioned, the maned wolf. So the lodge itself is really small, it's low-lying, it's very beautifully designed. It only opened about 3 years ago, so it's very modern in its decor. The master suite is absolutely huge. You've got this lovely living room and this lovely bathroom, which takes up the whole width of the room. And you get these kind of beautifully designed embroidered bags and hats and long sleeve shirts for all your safari excursions. And everywhere you go, there's always callbacks to kind of nature writing. So there'll be little quotes embroidered in the cushions, and books about people who have come to this area. Guimarães Rosa was someone who came to this area, and he did the most well-known nature writing from Brazil in this area, in the national park of Gran Central de Veredas that I mentioned before. So they also have superior rooms, again with this lovely living room attached, and standard rooms which are quite a bit smaller. They do actually have one room which is accessible, so we have wider doors and a much larger bathroom for anybody who has accessibility or mobility issues there. And so yes, the lodge itself is quite open plan, where there are communal areas with beautiful hammocks and sofas to sit in. And what's amazing is that it's as peaceful as it is, you've got company, in that all of these trees here are surrounded by birds. There's a cacophony of bird song the whole time. There's a beautiful canopy tower you can climb for sunrise and sunset when you get to see the forest come alive. And the staff here are all local, and they're incredibly friendly, very warm people from this area, and they provide some really delicious regional cuisine. You do not go hungry when you're staying at Trijensau. With every excursion you get this incredible platter of food, and not only that, then you have the slow cooked barbecue and really fresh delicious breakfast as well. They have a small pool and spa, so that is that's something just to cool off in. And actually they've seen some maned wolves in this area come to the pool occasionally. So the seasons in the Cerrado region are definitely not as defined as you'll find them in the Pantanal. So from October to March, that's when you have hotter days with tropical rains. So our winter time, and then April to September, it's drier and cooler. But generally, it's quite similar all year round, which is good. So it is an all-inclusive lodge. And the activities are taken a number of different ways. You get around by these safari vehicles mainly, but they do have fat tide bikes. They have kayaks to go on the beautiful lagoons, and there are a couple of hikes that they've started developing quite recently, actually. You can go out from the lodge with the guide to go out bird spotting first thing in the morning or at dusk. Again, you have these bikes, you've got the kayaks out on the lagoon, and all of these trees here are full of the yellow and blue macaws. So Tridge Sao, much like Kaiman, they work with On Safari, the NGO, the world-renowned NGO who work to protect endangered species everywhere, all over Brazil. So in the Amazon, the Cerrado, and the Pantanal. They also work with Rewilding Argentina in the Ibero wetlands. And they've been incredibly successful in rehabituating the jaguar in the Pantanal, but also the maned wolf in Tridge Sao. Now, the maned wolf spotting from Tridge Sao is all included, so you do not have to pay extra for this excursion. And it's normally done in the evening going into night because maned wolves are nocturnal. And since they started just 4 years ago, they have they are supporting 7 individuals, but I know that at least 2 of these have had cubs themselves, and so that's always a really fantastic thing to hear, because it then means that their program is successful, and they're a really important species in the whole ecosystem of the Cerrado region, where you have a huge amount of insects and invertebrates, and not that many larger mammals. You do have some deer and some jaguars and pumas, but not that many. So the maned wolf itself as a species is not actually a wolf. That's one thing I should mention. It is a type of wild dog, which you might see if you know about kind of African safaris, because it looks a little bit like a hyena. So it's not a wolf or a fox, but it is a dog. And something that I did also want to mention about this whole area and on safari is that they have been looking at trying to collar one of the melanistic jaguars in this area, and they were successful just a few weeks ago. Which means that they have been able to track these really beautiful, unusual, unique species of the black jaguars. So that's really, really interesting, and they're kind of updating us every now and again with the progress with this. It is not something that's open to the public yet or to tourists, but it's something that we will definitely be telling you about soon. And something else I should mention, with the BBC Planet Earth 3 coming out in October, well, this month, the 22nd, I think it is. So yeah, this weekend, Cerrado, Tridge Sao features in Planet Earth 3. I do not know which episode it is yet, but do keep your eye out, because they'll have fantastic shots of the maned wolf there, which is really exciting. So on top of this, you will be going out on night safaris to spot the dwarf alligator. They have these electric powered boats, so they don't disturb the alligator or the Kaiman too much. They also have this really interesting conservation project where they they breed the species here and to be able to let them back into the wild. And it's also a place where you can go and see these species for yourself as a guest, which is quite exciting. The guides here are great. A lot of them are ornithologists in their own right, so they'll make sure they have kind of specialist wildlife guides, but they will also have guides very interested in other skills like photography. And this area really lends itself well to very, very beautiful shots. And with that, they might tailor the hikes at sunrise and sunset to that kind of activity. They've got these new hikes that are going out in national parks, but also within their own private reserve, which actually is about 30,000 hectares, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So within this area of being one of the most biodiverse savannas in the world, you've got 850 identified bird species in this area, 250 of which can be spotted on the reserve itself. Plus 13,000 plant species. So this is 5% of the world's total. So if somebody is interested in this biology, then botanics and wildlife, then this is a great place for them. Plus many mammal species and reptiles and amphibians. So you've got lots of little armadillos, as I mentioned, the deer, the peccary pig, and the tapir as well. And this is a little video. It's their camera traps at Treasure Sound. This is what they show the guests when they stay, to show what kind of animals you can stay in this one. I hope you enjoyed that. A little ditty from Posada Children's Cell. So now I'm going to go on to the Amazon and the second biome of the wildlife itinerary. So the Cristalino Lodge is our partner in the southern Amazon, and it is located near the city of Alta Floresta. To get to Alta Floresta, you need to fly from Cuiabá to Alta Floresta, and there is only one flight a day. I do understand the difficulty of this, particularly with flight schedules in Brazil. So that's something I'll mention at the end, but this is basically how you get to the lodge. The transfers from Alta Floresta to Cristalino are all included in the package. So from Alta Floresta, you don't need to worry about any of that. So Cristalino has its own private reserve of 11,400 hectares, and it sits beside a state park. Now, this is quite particularly interesting because this reserve was set up by the owner's father. The owner is Victoria de la Riva, and her father actually founded the city of Alta Floresta. And to cut a very long story short, he actually ended up creating this reserve by trading land in the Amazon, so agricultural land that was going to be cut down, with land in the city for people who wanted to create a business in the city or a farm closer to the city. And that way he was able to create this huge reserve that acted as a buffer zone against deforestation, which is really quite amazing. They now use that reserve for a lot of biologists to come from all over the world to study the species there, and of course just kind of the research and for ecotourism. So the area of the southern part of the Amazon, why is it different to near Manaus? And why should you go here? So basically, it's a very high area of biodiversity from this kind of red patch you can see here. And it's surrounded by rivers and hills. The topography means that you've got a lot of high land around here. And this means you've got high level of biodiversity because of the amount of endemic species that stay in this area. And that is because they didn't want to migrate beyond where the hills and the rivers were. They apparently don't like to cross rivers, which is great because you get to come to the Amazon and see a lot of wildlife, which isn't always the case when visiting the Amazon rainforest. So this is your journey up the river. It's only about 2 hours from Alta Floresta by road and by boat. And the Cristalino River is where the Cristalino Lodge is located. And you arrive in this beautiful floating deck and then you wander into the forest. There's a stunning lodge that is all built out of wood that was sourced from sustainable forestries in the kind of northern part of Brazil. And the architect of the lodge is actually the owner's daughter. And she built all of the lodge, kind of designed the whole lodge with kind of airflow in mind, so they didn't have to use too much air conditioning. And so that means that each of the rooms has an airflow through the roof and out the netted windows, which keeps kind of a consistent airflow going through. And it's such a beautiful, calm, relaxing place to be, with some very beautiful touches. So there are 18 rooms, which I would recommend booking. They do have some standard rooms as well, but actually to go from superior upwards is recommended unless people are on a tighter budget. This is actually the special bungalow. It has its bathtub outside, and it has a very large porch area in front of it. You then have these very large superior rooms that have balconies all around the outside, large bathrooms, indoor outdoor showers. And then there are 2 junior bungalows, which are set in the kind of the forest a bit more, and they're a bit more isolated, gives a bit more privacy, and you can fit some extra beds in these as well. And so this is what they look like as standalone units. They're very beautiful. You're surrounded by this beautiful rainforest that has constantly got this noise of the rainforest around you, all the sights and the smells, and lots of families of capybara normally walking around as well. So as I mentioned, with the undulating topography, this also means you've got a huge amount of different kind of forest. So evergreen, deciduous, semi-deciduous, riparian, campinarina, and floodplain. But it's all generally primary rainforest. And with the activities from Crystallina, they are basically going out into the forest or along the rivers to learn as much about the rainforest as possible, learn about the wildlife, the biodiversity, and then everything that is accompanied with that. They do have very specific programs as well. If people are interested in, particularly in bird watching, they have special interest groups, including photography. They have family departures. They have yoga and wellness as well. They're 2 50-meter canopy towers, one of which you can see here is a real highlight for Crystallino. These mean that you can go up there at dawn or dusk, just see the forest come alive, which is something that I think is really, really important to see, because it gives you the idea of what a kind of a huge humming ecosystem the area really is. So the biodiversity, over almost 600 bird species, all of which are really quite colourful and beautiful, and exactly the kind of birds you would want to see and expect to see in the Amazon. Lots of mammal species as well, including the giant river otter, which was featured on, again, a BBC Wildlife documentary a few years ago. Obviously you have anaconda in this area, capybaras, a lot of Kaiman, the peccary pigs, lots of monkeys, including the white whiskered spider monkey that you have here, lots of sloths. And there is a picture of a jaguar, but they are incredibly elusive in this area. And then the butterflies are everywhere here, 1,500 species. And in fact, they are still being discovered, different species. One species was discovered about 4 or 5 years ago by a group of biologists who came to the reserve, and they named it after Victoria. So it's called Victoria crystallinae, which is a really beautiful kind of story and legacy. So on top of all of these kind of activities and kind of the operation of the hotel, they also have their own foundation which helps protect that forest, and the reserve is actually run by the foundation. And then not only do they bring biologists from different areas of the world, come from different universities to come and study and research the biodiversity here, they also bring local school groups to learn about the rainforest, to learn how important it is to conserve the rainforest, how important it is for the whole ecosystem, which is a really great part of their work. So yeah, here is a list of their kind of sustainability efforts, and really we've got this for each of our partners. I should have done one for Sao, and we've got one for Kaiman. But Crystallina were excellent at kind of really creating this beautiful lodge that has its own biological treatment of the grey and black water of each of the rooms, and that is through these palm trees, and you can't smell any of it. And I just thought that was amazing. And the flow of air through the rooms. All of their food is sourced locally. They actually have their own farm as well near Alta Floresta, and the chef is very, very keen to kind of bring this kind of Amazon influence into a kind of gourmet level to guests at the lodge. So that's Cristalino, and there's a short video here for you as well to show you about kind of the relaxation and the majesty of the Amazon in an area that you might not have known about so much. That tree was actually an enormous Brazil nut tree, and it's really, really beautiful. You spend a lot of time there, and the guide takes you through how to harvest Brazil nuts and how hard the planting is, and how much energy they have in them, and how it's such an important food for so many animals and people who have lived in the Amazon over the years. And finally, onto the Pantanal. So I'm sure you know about the Pantanal as a region anyway, you know, this incredibly interesting place where people have heard about from far and wide to go and see as much wildlife as possible. So the area of the Pantanal is here. Kaiman is located in the southern part of the Pantanal, and the access point to there is Campo Grande. So fly into Campo Grande, and then the transfers to Kaiman are actually not included in the package, so they should be booked through your DMC. Kaiman run 3-night and 4-night packages, leaving on Sundays and Thursdays for most of the year. So that's their kind of peak season from May to November, and also in January. The rest of the year, you have daily departures. As you probably already know, but I will remind you, our winter time, so you know, November to February is their wet season. Our summertime is their dry season. So it's up to you which you think is best. Obviously, dry season, you're more likely to see more animals because you can delve further into the reserves and you can go further by car. But each season has its benefits, really. So Kaiman is a 53,000 hectare true oasis with a huge amount of conservation at its heart, you know, of the fauna and flora, and also with a good amount of Pantanal culture as well. So this is what the Kaiman area looks like. The main accommodation area is right in the south here. This is where all of the logistics are done, really. This is where you go out from for all of your excursions. This area on the left is completely protected. Guests don't go here. Only biologists are welcome here. And our PPN is an area of protected land in Brazil that by law is protected for perpetuity, which is really quite amazing that they've managed to do this just for the sole reason of preserving biodiversity. They have one in Cristalino as well, actually, which I forgot to mention. And then these green areas, again, are not that much visited by tourists, but the rest of it is. So they have small trails and roads all over this area for guests to explore during their visit. So I'm sure you will have heard about Kaiman in the past. The owner, Roberto, and his family own Kaiman. They run Kaiman. They have this huge reserve, which combines livestock farming. So there are still farms in this area with the ecotourism and the conservation. So he really wanted to create this kind of sustainable model where you get three things involved. And so he took a lot of inspiration from different places like Sabi Sands in South Africa, where they have kind of game reserves alongside farmers, and you're still able to regenerate species even though there's still kind of cattle and farming nearby. And it's been an incredibly successful model. They are members of the Long Run, and they're at the forefront of kind of conservation and the ecotourism model in South America. So why do people go to the Pantanal? It's for the wildlife, it's for the bird life. I do say that, it's something I've noticed over the years of working in South America tourism, that people wanted to go to the Pantanal 10 years ago to see the bird life. That was where you go and see your birds. That's where you spot your, 50 species in one day. Now, not only do people want to go to see the birds, they come here to see the jaguar. Plus all the other amazing mammals. The giant anteater is actually my favorite. It's such a beautiful animal. And I'll tell you a bit more about the jaguar spotting in a moment. So the main lodge, this was changed about 3 years ago. So they did have these two lodges, Baiazinha and Cordillera, right in the middle of their reserve, quite far from each other as well. And it took a couple of hours to get to them. What they did is they took their two family homes 2 years ago, and they renovated them to make these 18 beautiful boutique rooms with a centralized pool between them. And it means that all of the logistics, all of the operations goes out from here, and it's been really good. I think it's been really successful. It means that kind of everybody is in the same place. You're not feeling too isolated. Now, if you do not have this updated on your website, or if you have noticed that it's not the same, because it used to be called Refugio Kaiman or Refugio Ecológico Kaiman, it's now called Kaiman, just Kaiman, and the accommodation is just called Casa Kaiman. So please do check your websites, because I have been doing that a little bit, but I will also get in touch with you if I do spot it as well. I do understand that updating websites is a big job though. So Casa Kaiman, these are the rooms in the two beautiful lodges. So very light, very airy, very spacious, a very lovely pool in the middle. A lot of the excursions are taken first thing in the morning and last in the evening. So you've got that time to relax by the pool, a bit of downtime. And we'll open up very early in the morning. So the staff are there to help you with whatever you want. Some really, really beautiful communal areas just to sit and relax. And to see all the birds flying around and the families of capybara walking around, and to spot the different wildlife from where you are. So the food here, as you might imagine, is fairly traditional in the sense that you're in the Pantanal, you're surrounded by farmland, but they're also really good at catering for vegetarians with these very large kind of salads, some fresh vegetables in a buffet style. They will try and do some special dinners out in the farm, out in the bush. They'll have one at the Quincho with these really beautiful lit pathways. So they're dedicated to making the experience very special to their clients. Now, the Villa Baiazinha, this can actually be reserved as its own private villa. So it has 6 rooms, and you'll have your own guide and own host. So that is an option for families or groups. So whilst you're here, there is a full schedule of nature tours and safaris. So you're accompanied by the native guide and a bilingual guide. And this will, of course, include everything from spotting the birds and all the different mammals, including the giant anteater, as well as the tree anteater and the tapirs and the armadillos and the peccary pigs. You might even spot a maned wolf. There's lots of deer, lots of foxes, ocelots, and of course all of the abundance of bird life here, which is just absolutely everywhere, from the tiniest kind of patoo owl or burrowing owl, and to the colourful parrots, to the enormous jabiru storks. You're absolutely surrounded by wildlife here. And these are, of course, the Kaiman that you find in the lagoon. Yeah, it's quite rare to see Kaiman in that sense, but they are definitely there. There are canoes that you can take out from the lodges out on the flooded lagoon. This is particularly nice for sunset. And they also do have horses now to take out on half-day rides. This is just quite sedate horse riding. It's just walking, because there's a lot of holes in the ground from different burrowing animals. So they want to have the best safety they possibly can. But it's a really nice activity that includes a picnic out in the reserve. So their conservation initiatives at Kaiman, these include 3 or 4 main projects. One of them is the Hyacinth Macaw project, where guests can go out for half a day with the biologists and the researchers to look at the nests, follow their behavioural patterns, and learn a lot about these incredible, beautiful macaws, which are very highly endangered because they are caught for their beautiful cobalt blue feathers. They also have these different conservation initiatives to do with protecting the tapir, and they want to kind of rehabituate the tapir. And the blue-fronted parrot, again, this parrot is highly sought after, and it was hunted to almost near extinction because it's kind of considered the best house pet. So they're working hard to kind of protect this parrot in the region. But on safari is the big one, the jaguars. So whilst you're at Kaiman and you're going out in their vehicles, which is this one on the left, you are very likely to spot the jaguar out on wildlife excursions. If you want a full immersive day, definitely seeing the jaguar and talking to the biologists and the researchers and seeing kind of their behavior and learning about how they rehabituated these beautiful animals in the reserve, then I would fully recommend a day out for your clients on the On Safari project. It costs around $250 to $300 per person. This money goes directly to the NGO On Safari. Kaiman are not associated with that payment. And that is to help the whole project and the rehabituation. They have this, together with taking people out during the day, they have a presentation where they show kind of the family tree of the jaguars since they've been rehabituating them in the last 10 or 12 years. And it just goes to show how amazingly successful they are. And they know all the names of the different jaguars from their markings. So you'll very likely come across one that the researchers will know about. And so in 2021, 98% of visitors, this is Kaiman and On Safari, did spot the jaguars. This actually has risen to 99%. So yeah, incredible sightings. And it's the only place in South America where you're very likely to see a jaguar from the land in an own private reserve with no other tourists from any other area. And this is a short video from Kaiman.
I am the Pantanal. In me, the richness of thousands of plants and animals find shelter. In me, earth, water, and air understand each other, complete each other. Diversity, balance, life. In me, Kaiman finds a home with meaning and history, harmony and purpose. And at Kaiman, I find refuge. But even refuges may be threatened. In 2019, a wildfire surrounded Kaiman, and with its power, crossed the river, claiming our lands. Grasslands and forests burned, a sanctuary in flames. Kaiman fought fire head to head, long days and nights of fear and courage, strength and love. But life endures, and together we are stronger. First rains came, the grass sprouted and birds chirped again. Jaguars walked in search of water, as did the tortoises and anteaters. And in our trees, macaws were perching again. Today, we are what we were yesterday, and will continue to be tomorrow. Life and refuge. Pantanal. Kaiman.
So there we have it. There's the Pantanal. Yes, I'd actually forgotten that video had the fires featured on there, which were a couple of years ago. And it was absolutely incredible how much effort they put into combating those fires. And it was also so beautiful to see how the wildlife did bounce back. Unfortunately, the hyacinth macaws were damaged quite a lot the numbers were damaged quite a lot from that. But yeah, the NGOs, surrounding NGOs really put a lot of effort into helping the wildlife kind of rehabilitate from that. So this is just an example of the different seasons. Now I can send this on to you after the presentation so that you don't have to look into it too much. But as I said, the Pantanal has a flooded season and dry season. Cerrado is generally the same all year round. The Amazon also has a dry season and green season, which is quite similar to the Pantanal. Now the logistics, and I know I've heard from a lot of people that the logistics in Brazil are difficult anyway, getting from anywhere to anywhere with schedule changes and cancellations. I actually don't have access to flight schedules myself. So what we do is we suggest three different options. We suggest, yes, taking scheduled flights from one place to another. And this will very likely include stop-offs in Campo Grande, maybe Cuiabá, maybe Brasilia. But there are some, pretty good hotels in each of these places. And if they have to do it, they have to do it. That is just the way of the schedules, unfortunately. You could do a private flight mix with scheduled flights. So Kaiman and Brasilia can do chartered flights. Kaiman and Trijensau. So Trijensau from Brasilia to and from Brasilia, and Kaiman to and from Campo Grande or Cuiabá. Or you can do all private flights. So this is something that we have had a quote from certain DMCs, but it is definitely something I would suggest you talk to your own DMC about. And we've spoken about this, and we think, if there's any way that you can include even just one of these lodges in a wildlife itinerary you have, then your clients will definitely get a really, really incredible experience no matter what. But combining these things will give you the best ultimate wildlife experience. And I spoke to Gareth just before I put this together, and he said, well, there is the option, he's given the good authority that there is the option of going to the area of Chapada dos Guimarães near Cuiabá if it turns out you need 1 or 2 nights in Cuiabá instead of staying in the city. Now, there are some Brazil experts out there, I won't name names, who will know this area very well. I don't know it personally, but it is but Gareth has talked me through it. It's one of these very, very beautiful national parks with tabletop mountains, wild rivers, beautiful waterfalls, amazing hiking, and really good for bird watching. So that would obviously complement the itinerary very well. So if you were to book the 3 lodges, then there are exclusive excuse me, services included. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry about that. That obviously came just at the right time. Oh my goodness. Right, I've got some questions to answer. I have people specifically interested in black jaguar. Can I send them already? Oh no, sorry. I knew this question might come. So no, it's not open to the public yet. And it probably won't be for another year. So I will keep everybody updated on that. We basically, On Safari newsletter is a really good newsletter to sign up to. So look at that, and it will give you the kind of the progress of that. How do you get from Alta Floresta to the lodge? Is it by boat, road, and how long is the journey? Alta Floresta to the lodge is about 30 minutes by road and about an hour by boat. So it's really close. You stop off in Alta Floresta for a refreshing drink and a chat at their hotel there. And then, you go by boat and road, and it feels really isolated, even though it's not very far. There are no other tourists where you are there. I thought they built new lodges over the place with different names, but here, you see by Azina still. So the lodges in Kaiman are not new. They're old family homes, but they got completely renovated. Baiazinha is there as I mentioned, the villa, which can be reserved, but only on a private basis. So Cordillera does exist, but it's being renovated and being used as the family home, actually, kind of like a place for Roberto to stay. I hope that's I hope that's answered everybody's questions. And I apologise for that coughing fit I had at the end. Does anybody else have any questions at all? And well, you're welcome to show your face and say hi and ask me a question, or you can pop it in the chat box. Either way. Anything else that's new come out of the three lodges? I can't think of anything at the moment. Cristalino have been doing some really great work and just kind of getting back into the market. But we're hoping that those flight schedules will kind of sort themselves out soon. And look out for the BBC Planet 3 documentary, and look out for the main tools. Thanks everybody for coming along. I'll send you the follow-up by email. And I'm going to be doing my next webinar on Finca Rosa Blanca in 2 weeks' time. I need to send that invitation out actually today. And then we've got a few more coming up. Simon's out in Ecuador at the moment. Look at our Instagram account. He's taking some amazing shots of the anaconda there and the integrity. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much for attending.